Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through purpose and passion. My name is Zach Ballinger. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We are streaming via YouTube, so if you have any comments or questions, feel free to enter them into the comment box, and we'll ask our special guest at the end to answer those questions. We did have a few questions that came in overnight. You guys are more than welcome to do that before the interviews. All you have to do is email Zach at zachballinger.com, and you can ask the questions right before the interview. So without further ado, thank you to our special guest. Emily, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be with you.
Yeah, so this is just for the audience out there. We're going to ask you some questions about your career. This has been a lot of people out there asking about this type of career, so we're really excited. So what exactly is your title, your job? What do you do career-wise?
Sure. So I'm a senior regional business manager at Glaukos, and I manage our iStent portfolio. For my specific geography, I cover half of the state of Georgia and a little sliver of South Carolina. I'm responsible for selling the iStent product and supporting it, educating clinic staff and surgery staff, managing reimbursement, making sure that everything's being done appropriately for our FDA label and that reimbursement numbers are making the centers profitable.
So just to step back, if you're a high school student and you're, kind of interested in this career, is this more along the medical sales profession or the device, or how would you classify this?
Yeah, I mean, it's medical surgical device sales. So I would say 50 to 60% of my time is spent in the OR, in the operating room, in cataract surgery, because that's where we are indicated for use right now. And then in between my surgical cases, I'm visiting clinics and different support staff that are all involved in the process of getting a patient from the clinic through surgery to have this procedure done.
Gotcha. So, these are the patients that are typically, might be either grandparents that are having vision issues, and cataracts, I guess, are a cloudy forms over the lens, so they can't hardly see, and then they have to have this procedure done. And you're actually selling, because they have to have lenses, I guess, to put in the eye.
Yep.
And you're selling that into the doctors and to the hospital centers, right?
So I sell the iStent, which is a glaucoma device that's implanted at the time of cataract surgery. So my demographic of patients is adult cataract patients that are also diagnosed with mild to moderate open angle glaucoma and are already on a medication. So the goal of the iStent placement is to reduce their eye pressure and hopefully get them off of a med. That really varies per patient what their result would be, but our FDA studies have shown really significant decrease in pressures to help these patients manage their glaucoma better.
Gotcha. And what do you like most about this job? What are you passionate about?
Yeah, my favorite part about the job is a successful surgery with a new surgeon who's never done this before. And just the excitement of doing something new and adding something into their toolbox that they can offer their patients can be really life-changing. I've picked up new surgeons this year that have never done this before, and now they've done 60 or 70 surgeries. And so that's 70 patients or maybe 70 eyes that they've been able to help better manage those patients' glaucoma. And it can really be life-changing. These are elderly patients trying to take their medications, not just their eye drops, but managing their whole portfolio of meds. And eye drops are tough to get in, and it's tough to be compliant with the schedule that you need. So it really can be very impactful to reduce the med or have better controlled glaucoma.
Gotcha. And this is sometimes a tough question for some folks. Other people they say it right off. But, what's something that you may not like about the job, or people need to know that's sometimes difficult to manage?
Yeah, I think in sales in general, it's it can be tough to manage different personalities, so I have my personality and, I'm friends with people that have similar personalities, and you kind of know what to expect and know the type of responses you're going to get. And when you're in sales, there's all sorts of different personalities, people that you click with really well that you may even be friends with outside of work. And then people that are just really different than you, a more analytical mind or a more direct, headspace. You just have to adapt to those different situations. So it's challenging, but it can be really fun too when you finally click with those harder personalities.
And so I think you touched on this earlier, and this is also another kind of tough question, because I know for many professionals, our days change, for example, priorities change. But if you had to walk us through a typical day, what does it look like when you get out of bed and then leave the job? What's that look like?
So I would say most surgical reps are getting out of bed pretty early in the morning, whether that's for early cases or to make a drive somewhere to get there in time for cases. Most of our surgeries are starting between 6:30 and 7 a.m. So, to get to an OR by 6:30, I'm sometimes up and out of bed at 5 to make that hour drive or however long it is. So you're starting pretty early. You're probably there for cases, anywhere from 3 to 5 or even 7 sometimes in the morning. In the afternoon, I'm hopping to another surgery center if there's someone operating in the afternoon. And if not, just making calls in the area. So seeing doctors in clinic, maybe following up with lead techs or schedulers or reimbursement people to just review, make sure, do you have any questions? How are things going? Are patients giving any pushback? Do you need any brochures? A variety of things that we're checking in on.
And I get this question a lot, but what was your, what did you get your degree in? What kind of education do you need to have? And did you have any certification or training prior to the role?
So I have a 4-year degree and from Ohio State in business marketing specifically. And I also have a minor in psychology. I would say for my job, typically you're looking at needing a 4-year degree, bachelor's. And, I see that in a variety of places, from journalism to psychology or business, logistics, engineers, et cetera. So there's a lot of different degrees that can land you in sales. In terms of, extra and beyond that, I did do a couple sales internships in college and had success there. And that's kind of what propelled me into this career, because I knew I really enjoyed it and I was good at it. I've also done an internship in marketing, and, that kind of got me into the healthcare sector. So I do think it's twofold, in that, for sales specifically, finding out that you like it and then kind of finding what you want to sell and what you're passionate about.
And, I think a lot of times, this is kind of a deeper question, but, when we grow up in high school, we think of sales in a negative connotation. Mm-hmm. So we think of a used car salesman,
Sure.
Somebody pushy, aggressive. Talk to me about what sales really means and why you're passionate about that particular field.
Yeah. It is a change in the mindset from what your exposure is at a younger age to then what it is to make a career out of it. And I really think it's about connections and figuring out if people have a need that you can meet. And even if they don't necessarily believe it, kind of talking to them and uncovering deeper layers than they're willing to offer maybe that first time. So getting really comfortable with hearing no, and I'm not interested, and continuing to go back. And even if that's to hear a no again and to learn something new from that customer or that prospect, every time you learn something new about them, it helps build a story, and that can complete something that then you'll know if your product can be beneficial in that environment or not. And most of the time they will come around and they'll see that, whether it's, continued support from you, continued data, their staff coming around, because a lot of times the hardest thing is getting the staff to believe that this can be done. The doctor's one person, but they're supported by, 20 or 30 staff members sometimes. And so getting the whole group engaged in what you have to offer and to believe in it, they can really make or break you.
Wow, great answer. And, like, I think that, there's this old saying out there that you have to hear a no before you hear a yes.
Yeah,
And, I think, as I used to do sales, and, the hardest thing for me coming out of college was hearing no,
sure.
and, or, being somebody being short with you or
Yeah,
anything. But at the end of the day, I think if you're passionate about your product and
right.
what you do, that's going to determine whether we're talking about medical sales or electronics or
Absolutely.
cars. You got to be passionate about what you sell.
Right.
And I think, I've known you well enough through these years that you're going to sell something you're passionate about. So
Yeah.
obviously, I think that drives a lot of those hard days, right?
Yeah,
Getting
it
you through
does.
those.
Yeah. And that's always, when I originally did a sales internship selling advertising. And that's where a lot of people start, is selling things that are not fun or sexy, and then moving into a career. I grew up in a healthcare family. My mom was a nurse. My dad was a pharmacist by trade. And I just knew that I wanted to be in healthcare. And for me, it was about the bigger picture of having an impact on people's lives. And the way I can do that is trying to positively affect the care that patients are getting.
Let's focus on something you said about the internship. I just wrote a new book, Don't Be a Zombie, How to Find a Career You Love. And one of the things that I highly recommend is either internship, job shadowing, or
Yes.
getting experience from on the job training. Talk to me about those internships and what role they had in your career development.
Absolutely. So the summer after my sophomore year of college, I did an internship with University Directories, and that was based on my college campus, door to door, selling print advertising in the back of our school directory. So, they did do directories. Ours actually was a planner, the free planners that you may have gotten around campus. There's advertisements in the back of them, and that's what pays for the planner and enables it to be free for the students. So I had a territory on campus, and I just went door to door. We did 30 cold calls a day. That was the goal for every single person on our team. And it was really hard work, but I did well, and I loved it. I loved going back more and more and getting people like that much closer to the finish line, and really showing them how they could connect with the college students and how they could even measure the impact that their advertising had, and coming up with the creative ideas and how they can connect with the community, because Ohio State has 75 to $100,000 students. So, that's undergraduate and graduate medical school. That's a huge population of people. And if you're a restaurant or a small business down the street, you'd be remiss not to take advantage of those people. So I did that for a summer. I really loved it. I had a great time. And then I kind of, since my degree was in marketing, wanted to try my hand at marketing. And Cardinal Health actually is based just out of Columbus, Ohio, in Dublin. And they had a marketing internship. So that's the next summer after my junior year, I took a marketing internship with them. And I was working closely with the salespeople on the medical side of the business. I helped manage some of the national sales meetings that we put on, but it was really from a customer experience perspective that I connected with our products. And it was fun, and I enjoyed being in the healthcare sector, but I really would rather not be in the office. So I knew I wanted to go back to sales, but had a heavy interest in staying in healthcare.
And that's so awesome what you did there, because you took an internship in sales, and most people, I didn't even do an internship, and I'm recommending it now. Most people do one and then they quit.
Yeah.
They don't do another one. And so I think that's awesome. You actually did too, to find out first, I majored in marketing, so let me at least see if it's something I want to do, even though you're excited about the sales realm. And two, I always talk about networking, and that plays a big role in our careers. Did you meet people in those internships that helped you along your career journey?
Yes. That's a great point, is the networks that you start to build. And when you're in college, it's hard to do that. You have your professors, and if you've gotten involved, then that's fantastic, because you've expanded your network, and hopefully you're getting exposure to what life will be like after you graduate. But you really, in these internships, you build champions, you build sponsors, people that will write recommendation letters that make you stand out above and beyond. And I think that is such an important part of an internship and being a good intern, and that you have these people that can verify for you in a full-time setting that, that's irreplaceable.
Yeah, and that's what I always say. Let's say you don't like the internship and
Right.
in 2 days, you got to show up on time,
Yep.
work hard, and develop those relationships anyway, because you never know where that's going to take you in your career. You can't,
Right.
if you do a bad job in your internship, then you're not going to get those letters of recommendation.
Right.
You're not going to be respected by your professional network, and you're not opening those doors to see other careers that might be out there. I know I've interviewed tons of people who've done internships in fields, and they were like, I knew it wasn't for me, but I met Sally, who was an accountant, and then I got interested in that. And then she wrote, just the stories keep piling up. So it's a great point of view. Now, let's rewind to your life when you were in elementary school.
Okay.
You're growing up. Did you have a dream career that you always wanted to be?
I remember being in maybe 7th grade and thinking I wanted to be a teacher. And I still think that kind of has molded or woven itself into what I do now, because so much of my job is training surgeons how to use this device. And that is arguably my favorite part of the job.
Awesome.
Being that my dad was in sales, even though he was a pharmacist by trade, I think there was some heavy influence there. Sales were a little different in his realm, but that was definitely a positive influence as well. And,
I want to get to these questions because I did have a lot come in just because some people are interested in the topics. So, the first question comes in, how do you get in the industry? Apparently, I've got a story from a student who's just graduated college, and they want to know how they go about getting in the medical sales device industry.
Sure. I would start by getting a sales internship or sales job, and whatever that is. And I know that can be hard and sometimes frustrating to not be in the industry you want to be in, but you have to build your credibility as a sales rep and show your work ethic and start networking with people. So my connection to healthcare ended up coming through the president of the company of that sales internship I had in college. He went to college with somebody else, and he happened to be hiring in a healthcare world. So networking, and they say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And not that will get you the job, but it will get your resume in front of that person. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. And then hopefully you can speak for yourself and, get them to buy into who you are and what you can bring to their organization. So get the sales internship, keep networking, stay in touch with those people, have good interactions, and make a positive, have them remember you. And even if that's shadowing at, and you're not getting paid, or doing as much as you can just to, get yourself into that industry, no matter if it's doing a job or not, just try to get ingrained in it and figure out how it works.
Couple of key points that you mentioned, famous career coach and author Ken Coleman says a resume without a relationship is dead. Yeah. And so, you have 300, 400 resumes for one position.
Yeah.
How do you get your resume to the top of the pile? It's networking. It's having a key contact.
Right.
And you mentioned something else too about, continuing to build that network. That's how most salespeople get into these jobs.
Yeah.
Is really this continuous networking that we do. And it sounds so cliche, and, students get tired of hearing networking because they hear it from the professors, they hear it from me preaching it all the time, but it is really the key, right?
Right. And even I remember going to job fairs in college, and it's so overwhelming to see all of these companies there, but go talk to everyone. What are you looking for in a candidate? If I'm not the right candidate now, what do I need to work on? What skills do I need to have experience in to be a better candidate for this position? Can we stay in touch? I remember Stryker being at our career fair, and it was so intimidating. And, I don't think they hire many recent graduates, but going and talking to them and figuring out what the culture is like and what they're looking for. And someone told me when I was in college that even if you're not in your dream job, make sure that the job you're in gets you one step closer to your dream job. And everything can be a stepping stone. Find value in what you're doing now and how that can get you one step closer. And if it's not bringing you a step closer, take a look around and see what might get you there.
Yep. And for those people that are out there, because I hear this all the time, I'm actually an introvert, believe it or not, and I'd rather be at home reading a book or watching TV and than at a gathering or a party. But, for introverts, it sounds so scary. And of course, a lot of the extroverts too are going to be in sales, but you do have introverts in sales. I always encourage students, and this sounds crazy, but go, like you said, at a career fair, if it's your first time talking to people and making these connections, first of all, go with a more senior student who's been through this and partner up, and then go to companies you're not really interested in and practice what you just talked about, your conversation.
Yeah.
Then when you get them perfected, then start going to the Strykers and the Cardinal Health, the other people that are there.
Yeah.
So I like that.
And I think that's easy. Hey, my name's Emily. I'm a junior studying business, and I would love to learn more about the candidates you're hiring for or the roles you're hiring for. And, you've made an introduction. You probably want to ask their name as well, but let them tell you. And then little bits and pieces that you pick up can kind of guide that conversation and make it a little less awkward where you don't have to drive it so much.
Great advice. Next student writes in, are you on call during the night?
I am not, which is why I love my job. Another reason. So, certain medical device and sales jobs are on call. Cataract surgery is typically very scheduled, and any ophthalmologist that is on call is really only seeing emergencies, and that is not in my wheelhouse. So I'm not on call. Sometimes I have to answer the phone for a customer that might need something for the next day, or a surgery center that's out of the product, or my boss needs something, but I do not have to go in anywhere in the middle of the night.
Another person writes in and says, this is the third interview they've had with a medical sales device company, a different company, and they have not gotten the job.
Yeah.
Any keys in the interview process?
I would definitely ask for feedback. So anytime you're not moving on, the least you can do is say, please tell me what I could do better or improve upon, so I have a better shot next time. One of my key moves is always to send a recommendation letter that I've received after an interview, whether that's leaving it with them in person or sending it over email after the interview. Just gives them one more thing to remember you by. So, keep trying. I know that it can be frustrating and it can deter you from the process, but the more interviews you do, the better you'll get. And always ask for feedback from those people, and hopefully they give you some honest responses.
And someone else writes in, how do I know if I want to be a pharmaceutical rep, a device rep, or a hospital rep?
Yeah, go shadow. Talk to whoever that may know someone that does this job, and ask them if you can come along. I've had people that ride in my car for a day and say, I never want to do this again. And that's totally fine. You probably have too. So just do as much as you can, ask a lot of questions. There's a lot of different jobs. There's a lot of different products. There's a lot of different industries that you can get into. And it just takes time to figure out what you're passionate about.
I thought for a longest time I wanted to do what you did.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed a lot for it and never really got the job. And then I actually spent some time in the OR. And I was like, after one day, and actually not even a day, a half a day, I was like, I do not want to do this. I do not want to be in a cold basement,
Yep.
Standing along a doctor for hours and just watching. And some people are wired that way.
Right.
Now, for you, and we had this conversation, actually, you're passionate about that. You love being in the OR.
Yeah. It's my favorite part of the job is being in the OR.
Where I was like, oh, please don't let me ever do that again. And so
I'm glad you figured it out that way, not the other way around.
And so, another student writes in and says, what major would you recommend if this is a career you want to do? I think you touched on that earlier, but just maybe they want to know, I guess, what they should major in now as a freshman or a sophomore, if this is a career they want to do.
Yeah, I think, I'm not the best person to ask for that. I'm biased, and I would just say business, because I think general business acumen, ophthalmologists are typically running their own practice. And so being able to relate to the business side of every decision they have to make, I think is helpful. That doesn't mean that there's not other great undergraduate degrees you can get that will help you in the career. I also, like I said, I minored in psychology, which I think is really valuable in just knowing what drives people and drives decision making. I wouldn't say majoring in psychology would have been the best decision, but I don't know if anything's off limits. My peers and my coworkers all have various degrees.
So I love this next question that somebody writes in. They're like, how can you convince doctors to purchase a product when you don't have the same level of education they do?
Yeah. It's an interesting part of this job. I truly believe that I and my coworkers are the expert on the iStent. We know the most about, we're incredibly trained to know how to implant this device, even though we've never done it in a real patient, obviously. But we have over 100 papers that have been peer reviewed and published, and we know the data like the back of our hand. And that's really a culture thing that our company has demanded of us, to be the experts and to know the data and to be able to answer those hard questions. So, the people we're calling on have a wide array of expertise in the ophthalmology field. But I do know the most about our product specifically.
And I think that's a general for, you look across the spectrum at every sales career. That's how you do it. Because, for example, I was talking to somebody who sells textbooks to PhD researchers at top Ivy League schools. So, you're talking about the brightest academic minds. But a lot of these sales reps, they have their bachelor's in history. And what it is a training that allows these people to talk about their textbooks that they're selling, where they know more about those textbooks than even a PhD at Harvard, because that's what they're specialized in.
Yes, exactly.
So I think
that's important. Be the expert on your product. That's how you're going to build credibility, and that's how you're going to sell your product. If you don't know more than them, it's going to be really hard to convince them, you're the right way to go.
Right. Just like that, going back to the example of the textbook salesman that is trying to sell to a Harvard professor, if they don't know a lot about what the content is in that book, and then they're like, why, wait a minute, why should I know more about the book than you do?
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. You have to be the expert. Emily, I've enjoyed this interview so much. I think it's going to help a lot of people out there that are looking to really either break in the medical device industry. You've given a lot of great tips and feedback. We know you're busy and just came out of the OR, so we really do thank you for your time today on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And, I'm happy to be here, and I think you're doing a great thing. So keep up the good work, and everybody out there, keep trying. You'll get your breakthrough.
And we appreciate the encouragement, and I want you to have a great Thanksgiving.
You too, Zach. Thanks so much.